Man, we are coming off of a huge week. Last Saturday we had our 99 Fest, and it
awesome.
was amazing. We had about 300 to 350 people show up, I think. We had 20 baptisms. Out of those baptisms, Monday morning I took one to Righteous Oaks.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
so awesome.
He took a giant leap in faith with Christ, and he took his first steps in recovery. So I'm just so keep him covered in prayer. Man, his name's Richard, and I'll be in touch with him and stuff. So, but what was your favorite part of 99 Fest, Stacy?
I think it was probably when everybody in the audience slammed the front part where the stage is. It was just a sea of people, and I think we segued at some point into prayer and having, like, if you need a prayer, just raise your hand. And so people were just kind of all on the floor. And that's the whole point, right? Mm-hmm. That's the mission. That's what we're going after, is souls. And so I think it was a mixture of some different messages, different things coming through the music, I think touched literally everybody there in a different way.
And that's literally what I want 99 Fest to really evolve into in the future, is to add other genres of music to, like, the artists, and just have so it's just diversified,
right?
Giving Grace gave a stellar performance on the rock genre side. Mississippi Maybelline opened it up, with his DJ skills.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
It was really good.
It was
really good. And then Redeemed and ASAP, closed it out, and it just, everything went off without a hitch except for that one little power surge.
Yeah.
For like 2 minutes,
I thought it was planned kind of for a second, and I was like, we didn't mean to do that? Okay.
Out of the speakers, Jimmy McGill brought the thunder. It was awesome. He truly inspired me. We had him in the studio last week. Blake, obviously, man, he always brings the amped up emotion, the fire. They call him Blake Speaks Fire for a reason. And then you and Brad were just, y'all get better and better and better and more powerful every single time y'all speak. And I'm just so proud of y'all. Thank y'all for, doing what y'all do for Black Sheep. And I really appreciate it. What was your favorite part?
I have to say, when Stacy spoke, like, Stacy hit the nail on the head.
Buttering her up.
No, like, me and her actually talked about it. Actually, it's on my live during the baptisms.
Yeah, I was like, we're live.
Oh, yeah, we're totally live. Like, it's okay. We just talked about all my problems, and everything I had going on while we were live right after I got baptized. It was amazing.
I just pointed to your phone.
I did get baptized.
Yes, I did get baptized, and then shout out to Blake and some of the other people that were there. They shared my live of me and all these other people getting baptized, and y'all had said, like, I think 18 K views on Facebook right now. Like, it's awesome. So, big shout out to them for sharing that moment. But yeah, Stacy was really, like, nailing it. Some of the things she said about how, you're not always feeling like you're on top of your God game, as I like to call it. And I was definitely feeling like I hadn't been on top of my God game. I'd been feeling like I just kind of have been real into other things. I'd been more focusing on my work and my career side than I was on God. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, God is my career. God is my work. God is my life. And I was like, let me pull myself back. And so I kind of was going through some things, and everything she said just really hit the nail on the head for me.
Man.
Yeah, I'm super passionate about the topic of why do we do the things that we do in these faith-based recovery communities, because there's so much opportunity for motives to get twisted. And, like, that's part of my story, and so it irks me to see people feel like they have to be a certain way in some of these communities, because the opposite is true. Like, without authenticity, you have no sobriety.
It's very
without
true.
Authenticity, what is your relationship with Jesus? What is your faith if it's not, it's surface level, and that will not carry you through when life's all over you. It won't carry you through, and the likelihood that we go back to what we know is greatly increased.
Well, Danny, how you were there for most of it or some of it? Did you have a favorite part of the experience that you'd like to share?
Yeah. I mean, I was real discouraged after the power went out and all the internet went out, so I couldn't do anything with the live stream, and that was something I was really, really looking forward to, is getting that out to the world. And to have that taken away, it kind of just put a sour taste in my mouth. But I mean, the music was was phenomenal. I love seeing people come together.
Amen.
In a large way like that. It was good to see.
Yeah, and even though you have that sour taste, I know that's what you were really looking forward to. The good news is we got the whole thing recorded, and Palmer was able to break them up into sets, and I've been uploading them daily to the YouTube channel. So if you're watching and you're interested in checking out the 99 Fest, you can go to the YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe and share what you like. And yeah, I mean, I'll start uploading the performances tomorrow. I've got all the speakers uploaded. And which brings me to this is I failed you yesterday.
You failed me?
I did.
You wait till now to tell me that?
Yes,
How did you fail me?
I love it.
I don't know how to. I don't know how to respond.
First of all, I did not know it was your birthday. So I spent a pretty good chunk of my day. This is how I failed you. I spent a pretty good chunk of my day, riding around Jackson and Rankin County looking for a diabetic sugar-free cake, and I could not find one.
Yeah, you got to make those things
anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is why
So
I
here's
never
what I
have
did.
them.
I went. I got you.
Oh, that's for me.
Yes, I got you something pretty for your house.
I mean,
'Cause
girl, what is he gonna give me flowers for? Come on, but I love that you
So I
thought
wanted
that.
you to have
We
something.
love that.
But
That
not
is
only
super
that, and
cute.
I don't have it yet, but I want to go ahead and tell you what your birthday present
No,
is.
you can't do
I
that.
can't do that.
No.
I'll have it tomorrow.
No, but we have to.
We
have
I
to,
will
'cause it's
literally
super
have it tomorrow or
awesome.
Monday.
Fine.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna tell you.
I don't know what to do with the. Should I hold it?
Yeah.
Yes, you should just hold it the whole time.
First, you have
I
to
love it.
name it. You have to name it, and then
Here.
you have to love it and water it. And
I think you have to put ice cubes in there.
you put ice cubes in it.
Why
See,
would you do that?
Why would
I've
we
heard
do this?
Tylenol or aspirin.
I don't know. It has
I don't-
pictures of ice cubes on the front of it.
That's
I feel
what
like
I'm.
she's
It said
right.
6 cubes a week.
That's awesome.
I don't even have 6 cubes.
I'm
a
pretty
week.
sure you put cocaine in there.
No, that plant's in recovery. You can't give that one
Oh.
anything like that.
We gotta have-
Cocaine-free cocaine
Yeah.
then.
Gotta get
Yeah.
diet cocaine.
So, so the Black Sheep family is coming together, and we're going to get you a session with Six and get you a tattoo.
Oh my gosh, that is the best thing that
birthday
you could have
to
just said to
you.
me right then.
So I didn't
love
fail
that. You didn't fail me. No, you didn't fail me.
Amen. So
Look at-
happy birthday.
Look at God. Thank you so much.
Happy birthday to my wonderful co-host. We
Thanks.
love you so much.
Today is actually still it's my sober birthday is today.
Oh!
That's freaking awesome.
So it's your 24th birthday yesterday.
Uh-huh.
And your 9th?
9 years.
9 years. Congratulations. Praise God.
I'm
Nothing
just saying,
but
I did
God.
not realize
Come
that
on.
you were 24.
I'm not 24.
I was gonna say because
I'm
if
not
you are,
24.
I feel
John,
extremely old.
Yeah, John. I don't know.
So how come, John, we didn't go back in age on my birthday? I'm feeling a little
Right.
jealous here.
Yeah.
Like, you aged me on my birthday. If I remember correctly, you said I was older than I was on my birthday.
Yeah, but you're my little
can't-
sister. I can
That's
do
messed
that.
up.
That's
I see
pretty
how
bad.
it is. That's all
That's-
right. I'm going to remember that. Wait till
pretty bad.
yours comes back around.
She'll
Look,
never forget that.
Actually, let me tell you something. I
actually.
shouldn't have done that because Chelsea gave me the greatest surprise birthday party I've
look
ever
at you,
had
and
in
look
my
at
life.
you.
And look at how I treat her.
Oh, it's okay. We had fun.
Yes, we did. We had a blast.
We had
But that's
fun.
a story for another time. Let's dive back into where we left off about 9 months ago.
I know,
when
it
you
feels
were
like it, doesn't
does
it?
feel like a long time ago.
It
But I think
does.
to catch Chelsea's part 1, again, go to the YouTube channel. And we left off with right about the time you were at your first pregnancy.
Yeah. So we left off. I had just found out that I was pregnant with Phoenix and was living in the woods at the end of High Street. So basically, we were living in the woods, the end of High Street, still getting high, still doing the most. And next thing you know, one day while we were out there in the woods, I fell out. And Gina was like, oh my God, and like called my mother and was flipping out. And they took me to the hospital, and come to find out I was like 5.5, 6 months pregnant.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
far along.
Yeah, I wasn't just like a little pregnant.
Right.
But I was on drugs, so I
Yeah.
didn't look any bit of pregnant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was definitely pregnant. So we went through the stages. About this time, my parents decided they were like, okay, we're gonna try to help you guys out. They weren't moving us in with them, but they were gonna help us out. My dad ran steel service over on Flowood Drive. God rest his soul. I miss him so much. Actually, I was just thinking about that on the way here. Tomorrow's Father's Day, and it hits you hard. My dad, he's been gone 6 years. His birthday was actually just the other Monday, June 3rd, and had a rough week the other week. So it was it's kind of been a rough one. So, you know, thinking about him and all the stuff he did, Dad stepped up, gave Gino a job. There was a guy that would, first Gino rode his bike from High Street to Flowwood Drive to go to work. And then one of the guys that worked with him would pick him up. And I was still chilling out in the woods every day, you know, walking to go get food every day, stuff like that. And, you know, still definitely getting high. Nothing had changed there. And so we started saving up money, and then my parents were like, look, we see you guys are trying, da-da-da-da, like, let's move you in with us. So we started staying with my parents. We were doing pretty good. I don't remember if we were still getting high. I want to say we were. We probably weren't like we were before, but, you know, we were being a little bit more controlling with it because we were staying with my parents. But we were saving up money and everything.
How does one save up money while they're on drugs?
So that's why
I've never had money.
So I'm pretty sure
Like for
through
me,
all of it,
real quick, for me, like dope was money, and it was a bartering system.
Yeah.
So well, if I had two quarters to rub together, those were going in the pile of money we were going to take to the drug dealer at the end of the day.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I'm pretty sure I was actually like giving my parents the money, or Gino was. I wasn't working. I mean, Gino was working. I definitely was not. So I'm pretty sure he was like giving my dad the money, stuff like that, you know, that kind of thing. But we stayed with them, and then we decided. Y'all, this is great. My husband's like, are you really going to tell him this? And I was like, yes, I am. So me and my husband decided right before Christmas, tax time was coming up. And we were like, well, if we're married, we'll get a bigger tax return. So, yes, Gino and I got married December 23rd. It's an argument between us. I say 23rd. He says 24th. We're really not sure which one. I say 23rd, though. I'm pretty sure it's the 23rd. We're going to say 23rd because, you know, I'm always right. Just saying. So we got married at the courthouse. While we were at the courthouse, Gino pled guilty.
Wow.
Gino signed papers with the judge the same. So a couple weeks before that, I got rushed to the hospital because they thought I was in early labor. They rushed me to the hospital, and I had a little weed one-hitter in my wallet. And Gino went and got my wallet out of the car at UMMC, you know, go through the metal detectors. Metal detector went off. They opened up my wallet. They took him to jail. They took him to jail for possession of paraphernalia. Yeah, so Gino didn't even smoke pot. Like, you know, that was one of the things. Gino did drugs, but he didn't smoke pot.
You can't even make this stuff up.
No.
Like, you can't. Like, what do you mean?
No,
Tell me you're an addict without.
Yeah, tell me you're an addict without telling me you're an addict. I've got it going on.
I used to smoke weed out of my asthma inhaler, so that might have been
That's so priceless.
I might have been a sign there. I don't know.
Oh my god!
Put a little temple over the top, like you take the medicine out, and I would take an earring out.
Don't teach people how to do that.
Okay, you're right. For sure.
We're not
Hold
going to teach you these things.
Anyway, first time I got arrested.
Thanks, MacGyver.
Yeah, it was great.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, so you know, a few weeks earlier, Gino had gotten arrested for my pot paraphernalia.
Well, that's a husband's duty to take a charge for your loving
I don't know.
bride.
know.
We met this lady that had come to us when he had court to get released, Miss Gaynor. Miss Gaynor has been a part of our life. She still is. Actually, Miss Gaynor is still, like, she messages me. She still does a program that is for people that have, like, gotten in trouble and stuff like that in Hinds County, to keep them from going to jail.
Mm-hmm.
And so Miss Gaynor was like, well, I could help y'all out. And Judge Owen said she can marry you guys. So we went to the Hinds County Courthouse, did the little thing at the little window, you know, and then we went in there to Judge Owens's little, like, you know, jury, whatever you call it, chambers.
Yeah.
And then we went in there, and my mom was there, my dad was there, me and Gino, of course. And Gino's oldest son, Christopher, was there, and my nephew. And they were, like, little. I mean, y'all, we'll be married 10 years this year. So this was a while ago. Like, look, I had, like, the boy haircut and the big old belly going on. And, like, oh, my God, it's, like, the worst wedding pictures you could ever have of your life. Like, it's terrible. They're on Facebook. They're treacherous.
You should have brought those.
I should have. They're hilarious. But yeah, so we got married and then turned her out after, and he signed his little guilty plea to do the little thing, and they made both of us do the classes because they knew that I was the one who's actually, you know, pot stuff it was. So we did all that. We got married, got our taxes back, found a house in Pearl. Oh my God, this house was a nightmare. This house was the most horrible thing that could have ever happened. We put every dime we had into this house, and this lady was like, okay, you guys can work on the house to help with your rent and all this, that, and the third. And I was like, okay, great. This lady's so sweet. No, that lady was not. That lady was so horrible for what she did. So I'm like huge pregnant. I'm due in April. Huge pregnant. We move in the house. It's like January, February. Move in the house, and I guess we'd been in the house for like about 3 weeks. All the guys from my dad's work were all about coming to help, of course, helping the boss's daughter. We had like a water leak. We had a couple things. They all came over and helped. Well, then all of a sudden, like, I wake up and I've got this rash all over me. And I'm like, what is all over me? And so I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I've got bites just everywhere on me, rash all on me. Like, and I mean, I'm huge. And then, like, Gino has it on him. So I know it's not just because I'm pregnant. So we go to the doctor. My mom takes us to the doctor. Come to find out, they tell us that we have bed bugs and scabies.
Wow.
Whoa.
And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, and I'm wigged out. So not only that, then I have to tell all these guys.
So
that
you
work
don't get
with my
scabies from
dad.
living in the woods, but then you
No,
finally get a house.
I don't get it from living in the
Wow.
woods. But then I move into a house, and
Wow.
I end up with bed bugs and scabies all over me. Like, scabies just all over me. And I'm huge pregnant. I'm probably like 200 pounds. Like,
Was it like in the
huge.
carpet?
It was all in the house. It was in the house, under the house, because the water problems they had under the house. Apparently, it like lives in wet, moist places, and it was just. So here's the thing. So
That's
the exterminator
devastating.
comes out there. Exterminator comes out there and everything, right? And he comes and does his whole deal and everything, and tells me about everything that's going on. And he's like, "Look, my wife tells me I have to tell you." So this lady knew this house was infested like this.
Oh,
And I'm like,
man.
what? Are you kidding me? So, of course, being the person that I am and the junkie that I am, I'm like, I'm not paying her nothing. So I stopped paying her rent. And so next thing you know, like, we're still selling drugs, doing drugs in the house. The guy like treats the house, and I'm telling the lady, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna pay you for all this. Like, we went through all this crap, had to go through these treatments, like all this stuff. They treated the house, had to throw away all the furniture we had, get new furniture, paint the walls, like doing all this. And I'm gigantic pregnant doing all of it with Gino, and plus Gino's working at night. Well, then we had the bright idea, we were going to sell drugs in Pearl.
Oh,
That's yeah.
brilliant.
How did that work out?
Like, so, so I'm selling drugs in Pearl, and it's right there by That's Pretty pawn shop on Cunningham Drive, or whatever that place is. I think it's called something else now. It used to be called that. So Gino goes to work one night, and I look out the window, and I'm sitting there with Gino's brother, and I look out, and I'm like, what is that on the roof over there? And I'm looking, and all of a sudden, like, there's real life people on the roof over there. And I'm like, all right, I know I'm on drugs, but I'm like, this is real. Like, and I'm calling Gino, and I'm like, Gino, you got to get home. There's people on the roof, and I think they're watching us. Gino's like, you have lost your mind. And I was like, maybe, but maybe not.
Maybe.
Like, I need you to come home. So he's like, all right, well, so he comes home. And he's like, okay, yeah, there's definitely people on the roof over there. Like, it's real. So, needless to say, he goes back to work. Well, then all of a sudden, I get a call. They tell me that Gino's on his way back home from work, and I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, something happened. He said he feels sick, and he's on his way home. Gino walks in the house, and Gino was grinding steel, and the grinder had caught his shirt and ripped all the way up his chest. And because he was on drugs and he worked for my dad, he didn't want anybody to know. So he went in the bathroom, passed out for a little bit, and then came out, told him he was sick, and come home. So now I'm tripping about people on the roof, and now my husband has come home, and his stomach looks like straight hamburger meat.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, what do I do? Like, I can't call my mom. I can't call my dad.
You cannot make this stuff up.
Like, what am I going to do? So Gino's brother comes over, and he comes running. He's like, the people are still on the roof over there. And I'm like, oh, my God. Like, what is going on here? So apparently the feds had posted up on the roof across the street because they had heard that I was slinging a very large amount of drugs. So then I'm like, I'm over there. I'm patching Gino up. I'm just, like, trying to put bandages on him. Finally, I end up having to take him to the hospital. Of course, Gino ends up losing his job because of the whole thing, because he fails a drug test. Well, and then not only that, of course, I haven't been paying rent. And then, of course, I'm still slinging dope out of both pant legs. Like, I'm just doing way too much. Swole pregnant, just thinking I'm just running around Pearl. Like, I mean, just doing the most.
Yeah.
And so Gino looks at me, and he's like, look, like, this is real. these folks are watching us. Well, then on top of that, we knew that Gino's truck that we had gotten, we hadn't paid anything on it yet either, because we spent our tax return money, of course, on house and drugs, not, the down payment on the place. So needless to say, we do all this, and Gino looks at me, and I look at Gino, and I'm like, all right, we got to go. Like, feds are watching us. We got to go. Like I've said before, I don't know if the feds were really, like, honest like we thought they were, but we thought the feds were honest, and I wasn't risking it. I'm one of those kind of people, like, look, if I get the slightest stint that I'm going to go to jail, I got to go.
Yeah.
So, like, we load everything up in the Jeep that's fixing to get impounded, and we hit state lines. Now, I do realize my husband was still on paper at the time. So we take off to Alabama, where I'm from, like where I grew up living, and we take off with all our drugs. When I tell you that there is these signs from God that you don't pay attention to when you're on drugs, these were those. When I tell you, girl, no, it gets better the whole way there. Every pipe that I had, every single pipe I had broke. Like, I would touch it and it would break. Like, I'd look at it the wrong way and it'd break. Then we think the feds are behind us. I throw like a half ounce of dope out the window. And then I'm like, wait, we got to turn around and go back. I need those drugs. We got to have gas money. So then I'm on the side of the road, pregnant, trying to find a half ounce of dope.
Looking for drugs.
Yeah, looking great. And so we go to Alabama. We stay there for a few weeks. We come back, and my parents are like, okay, look, y'all can just stay with
Hang
us.
on. Did you find the 8-ball?
Did I find, you mean the half ounce of dope?
Yeah.
Yes, I did find my half ounce of dope. Thank you very much. I was one of those.
Did you have
graceful.
a flashlight strapped to your forehead?
No,
Okay.
no. For
Okay.
once, I did not. It was daylight.
Okay, just curious.
No, I actually had it. I had it wrapped up in neon duct tape.
Yeah.
Not hard
And
to find.
so it was not hard to find. And, that's one of those moments that you have those, like, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll wrap it up and it'll be bright and da-da-da. And, I was a tweaker, and I was like one of those bright little, like, candy popper
Yeah, but they
tweakers
can
that,
find it too.
everything I had was neon
Yeah,
colored.
yeah,
And,
yeah. Same.
you stood out. Like, how to say you're a meth head without saying you're a meth head.
Throw a Hello Kitty
Yeah.
shirt on that you bought out of the children's section
Facts.
at Walmart.
Facts. Big facts.
Yeah.
Yep. Have on like 16 little candy looking bracelets on
Yeah.
your arm. Yeah, like you're grown.
Box
yeah.
hair
yeah.
dye.
Yeah.
Yep. Box hair dye.
Life is good today.
Life
You know
is
what I mean?
great
Life
today.
is good today.
Are you kidding me? Like I feel you. I'm like, I don't have any like goofy bracelets on or nothing. I'm all the way grown now. Like, it might not, maybe not all the way grown, but I at least appear to be.
Yeah.
How many flashlights did I have in my backpack?
I don't
Oh my
know.
God.
A lot.
7?
Several.
Yeah.
Look, flashlights, y'all. The other day at work, I told the guy I work with, he pulls this great flashlight out. I looked at him. I said, "If
Was it a
I
trigger?
look, I said, if I was the old me, I'd have just straight robbed you. You'd have never seen it again, and I'd been out there looking around on the ground for something, and I just swore I dropped it." And he looked at me and he was like, "I'm so glad that's not you anymore." I was like, "Yeah, you and everybody
Yeah.
else."
Right.
But yeah, so anyway, I move in with my mom and my dad again. So does Gino. We have Phoenix, April 9th of 2015. Phoenix is born. My beautiful firstborn. Boy, he's so cute. He's something serious. 4 days old. CPS shows up at the door. Knock, knock, knock. You and Gino got to go. Your child tested positive for methamphetamine. Da 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 da. So mom and dad are like, all right, we're taking him, and you got to go. And that's where it got nasty. That's when we hit the streets. That's when I started. That's when Gino was like, all right, look, this is survival time. This is it. Like, we are in survival mode. Like, the first time I lived in the woods on High Street, Gino kept me very secluded from like the real raw part of being homeless. He really did. He kept me like where it was like, okay, you go to this place, and this place, and only that place, and then you come back here. You don't talk to people, you don't socialize with people, and you only stay in touch with your people. So when this happened, it was like, no, you're all right, this is it. Get your backpack, strap it on. This is what we're doing. And then we had to have money, and my parents weren't going to help. So I was like, all right. So we started staying at the Select 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been there a couple times.
Yeah. So, I was living at the Select 10. I was holding a sign on the side of the highway for money. This was when people didn't really do it like as much as what you see now. So I'm not even going to lie. The money was ridiculous. It humbled me to see how many people were just so willing to just help a total stranger. But like I would get out there with my little Converse on and my cutoff shorts and my T-shirt and my backpack, and I'd hold a sign for like an hour, and I'd make like $400,
Wow.
$500 easily. And that didn't even include like gift cards they'd give you for food and stuff like that. So then we'd go back to our hotel room at Select 10, buy some drugs, all get high, and I'd hang out by the pool, you know, with the palm trees at Select 10 and lay by the pool and pretend I was in Florida and I was doing great in life. Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is great.
Yeah,
This is
this
fun.
is great. This is good. It's
Yeah.
healthy. I'm healthy. Wasn't talking to my kid. I wasn't allowed to see my kid. Nothing. So time keeps going by.
So I know it was, I'm sitting out by the pool and pretending like life is fine. How much of your thoughts were consumed with your child?
I tried not to be really honest with you. I tried not to think about him at all. You know, first off, that was my first child. So it was like one of those where I guess it was like I didn't do like most women do when they're like, oh, I was pregnant, I bonded and this and that. I didn't really do all that. I just was like, I'm pregnant, I'm on drugs, whatever. This is what it is.
Yeah.
Then I had him, and it was literally like 4 days in, he was taken from me. And it wasn't like, oh, you can come by and see him. It was, you can't see him, you can't have anything to do with him. So it was an out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
And I just stayed high.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I hate to admit that today, you know, it was what I did. I just blocked it all out. And, you know, my mom, I would kind of reach out to her a little bit later on. I didn't for like the first like probably 6-8 months of his life. I didn't really get to see him, and I didn't really, other than some pictures my mom would post on Facebook or stuff like that, I didn't really get to see him. My mom, once I moved out of the Select 10, we moved in this weird man's shed.
I relate
Stacy,
to
just
that.
go ahead and
I relate to that. So anyway, just
Where was it? Was it in Jackson? Okay, then we're good. I was just
Okay.
making sure it wasn't the same creepy man.
Yeah.
Like I lived in the People Under the Stairs Meet the Hills Have Eyes backyard.
Yeah.
Like it's real. Like if you
I think I know exactly what
you
you're
know
talking
exactly
about.
where
I know
I'm talking
I know
about.
What you're talking about.
Yeah, like off West Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in that shed. So that shed that was like a little like I want to say like a little loft kind of thing. It wasn't really a loft. I don't know what you would call it. Like, but Gino built it. Like it was like a little rackety, nasty shed. And this man was like, "Look, y'all can stay here." And so Gino started going and getting lumber from like junk, like out of
throwaway lumber.
garbage. Yeah, like throwaway lumber. Like I remember him walking up the road off Fortification, walking up the hill with this huge piece of lumber on his back. And I was like, you look like Jesus right now walking up the hill. And he was like, stop it. And I was like, maybe this is a sign. Like, maybe our life is going to get better. And he was like, I don't feel like this is the sign. Chelsea. And I was like, but maybe it is. And he was like, I appreciate you being so positive, but I just don't feel like this is it. And I was like, okay. So then he builds like me this little like cottage out of a shed. And it was those sweet moments that like even in our addiction and everything, it was where he really showed he loved me and he wanted to just make something of a home for us. But that place was a nightmare. That place was a nightmare. First off, these people were creepy. They would take the wall off of the shed, like, and like come into our place and like steal from us. I mean, you got to realize this is a place full of Look, I told you, the hills have eyes. Meet the people under the stairs. And there was even really a man that later on lived underneath the house. Like, I'm not even lying. Like, you cannot make this up.
Yeah.
Like, so we lived there, and my mom was like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you. You're trying to get established somewhere." Well, I'll tell you what, if you want, you can come over and you can see Phoenix. Wasn't letting Gino come because, you know, my parents' way of doing it is they blamed Gino. That was their answer. Of course, they were like, no, it's not Chelsea's fault, which really and truly, what's really messed up about all this is y'all, when Gino met me, Gino wasn't really getting high, like talking about. Like, he'd hit the bowl and every now and again, but Gino wasn't really getting high. I got Gino getting high. Like, I got Gino out there. And so it was really rough on Gino because, like, Gino's like, I want a relationship with my kid. You know, this is his second kid he doesn't really get to see or talk to. And my parents are like, it's all your fault. You've ruined her. When really I was the leader.
You know, that takes a lot for somebody to sit there and admit full accountability for somebody else, getting out there like that. I respect that. Like
it's
big
the
time.
truth. I mean, there's one thing that I've done since I got sober, and I have learned. Look, I was a big time just liar, manipulator, and I did a lot of things. And when I got sober, I was like, you know what? The one thing I'm gonna do is I am going to be real and accept accountability for all of my actions, all the things, no matter how bad they were.
Yeah.
Because in order for me to be who I am in my recovery, I have to take ownership for that, and I had to deal with that. And in dealing with that was accepting that and giving it to God. Gino was always a very religious person. Like, Gino was always really in touch with God, and I never really was. So through all the time that we're living with these creepy people and all this stuff and this and that, and we're being pulled from our child, and all these things are going on, Gino's still got like this understanding with God. Like, he's like, this is just a season. And I'm like, what are you talking about, a season? Like, bruh, we are messed up. Like, this is not a season. This is life, and life sucks. And I got to go fly a sign. Like, I'll be back. And I'd strap on my fly clothes, and I'd head out all pissed off at Gino. And like, what are you talking about? And really, it was like God's way of going, excuse me, Chelsea, would you please listen to him? Like, he's speaking to you. He's speaking my word to you. And I'd be like, yep, not today. Sorry, got to go get high. Got to go, like I was going to work or something. You know what I mean? And so Mom and Dad kind of let us see Phoenix a little bit. Got to see him at Christmas. So you figure he was like not quite a year old yet when they finally like let us really see him. Then going into the next year, let's see, Phoenix is 9 and Henry is 6 now. So yeah, we did like 2 years, in between me getting pregnant again, where we were running the streets and just going hard, between Select 10, the creepy house, and everything. And then, we found out I was pregnant. I want to say that we were still staying at the creepy house when I found out I was pregnant. No, I take that back. That was when I found out I was pregnant and I miscarried. I found out I was pregnant and I miscarried. I was like 5.5 months pregnant, and I had just had like an ultrasound and all that. And that next day I miscarried. And, I was like, and then I was just devastated. I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, what am I thinking? Like, I'm strung out on drugs. I'm living in a shed. Like, what was I thinking? I just think I was going to raise this baby. Like, this shows you where my mind was. Like, my mind was so burnt. Like, I was so deluded. Like, I had no idea of real reality. Well, during all this time, I, was still getting high. Gino was working a little bit for this guy, Mike Liddell, who was the dope man, big old school gangster guy that, he was like the guy that you see with the gator shoes and the suits and stuff, like, and the fedora hats. But like, he saw me and Gino running up and down the highway one day fighting, and pulled up in his Cadillac and was like, I don't know what y'all are on, but y'all need to get in this car because y'all are finna go to jail. Like, we literally got, I will never forget it. We were fighting, and I waited until we crossed over and onto Hines County from Ridgeland, and I turned around and I decked him in the face and was like, da 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 da. And they're like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, it's okay. We're in Hines County now. It's all good. We don't have to worry about the fight.
They're not going to arrest us in Hines County. Yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we're all good. And this guy sees us, and he gets us in the car. And next thing you know, it's like he sees that Gino knows how to do things in work and stuff. So he starts getting Gino to work for him and giving us drugs, But he was there for us. Like, I hate to say that he was just all bad, because he really, honestly, genuinely cared about us. Like, he didn't want to see bad happen to us. Like, he was always trying to help us out and try to pull us out of real dark places, and was like, look, if, but then at the same time, he looked at me and was like, oh, that girl's going to make me some money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of a battle between
I think there's a lot of a lot of people out there that they don't want to see anything bad happen to us. They don't want to they want like, oh, you're sad. I want to make you happy. I want to make you feel better. And the only thing they know is to give us drugs.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like on the one hand, you are trying to be a decent human being in my life, but on the other hand, you're just continuing to keep me sick.
You're just Yep. So all this is going on. We're really just running the streets. We're just acting a fool. Everything's going on. All of a sudden, Mom and Dad reach out to me, and they're like, look, here's the deal. If you don't sign over custody of Phoenix, like if you don't sign all your rights over, you'll never see Phoenix again. Me and Gino are like, oh, man. So we go and meet at my parents' lawyer's office, and we signed over rights to Phoenix. I signed my son away. So legally, by law, Phoenix is he's my brother. His last name's Mitchell. My parents adopted him. Best thing that could have happened for him, you know, he gets Social Security from where my dad had passed away. You know, his college will be taken care of. He's good. You know, my mom and my dad always have done good for him.
I could see that being a whole God thing.
But yeah, it's a very big God thing. At the time, it wasn't. At the time, I was mad.
I'm sure you didn't see it that way.
I felt like my mom had just ripped my child from me. Mm-hmm. But now, it took me a long time with that one. Look, I held a lot of resentment for my mom. God love you. I know you're probably watching right now, Mom. I love you, and I appreciate you for what you've done. And don't ever take it like I don't, because I love her so much for what she's done. Like, I mean, what woman stands up at like 45, 50, you know, let's see, my mom's birthday's on Monday. Shout out to you, Mama. Happy
Gail.
Birthday. We're not going to put your age on here, since you definitely don't look at Mama. I love you. I
want to go there for a second, though, because resentment and anger, you know, one of the things I'm big with my clients is that we talk about, you know, anger is a secondary emotion.
Yeah.
So that means that there's a primary emotion that happens first. And the primary emotion, what happens first, is usually something that makes us feel vulnerable and weak, right? Something that it's uncomfortable. I don't want to feel it, but I know anger. And anger is its own drug, right? Anger makes us feel like we have armor on. Anger makes us feel like, you know, we have a defense. And so I would imagine that you weren't really angry, but you know how to play the angry card. Yeah. But there was some much deeper emotions underneath that, because a second ago when you said I signed my son away, and I know that you're in a good place with it now, but it still seemed like there was a part of you that felt some heavy stuff.
Yeah, so that's one of those that, like, you know, that's why, like I just said to her, you know, look, I love you and thank you, but like, that's a hard thing to do. Like, I don't care who you are, how much that you're in touch with God, or what you're going through, like, it's okay to hurt from that.
Right.
And I want every woman, or every girl out there, anything, if there's something that you get from my story, just know that, like, the key is selflessness when it comes to your children. Your children, they don't ask for this. Like, they don't get to choose you. They don't get to go, oh yeah, I want that junkie as my mama. And he literally was born to a junkie mom, and it wasn't fair for him. And my parents stepped up, and my parents were great people to take him. But I was angry. I felt like they took my kid. You know, I had no reality of it. Like, I just thought I was going to run with my baby living in the Select 10 or something, or in the shed at the Hills Have Eyes people house. I didn't have any real reality to me. Like, I was looking back on it and seeing how I am now, to how my thought process was, like, I just thought that, like, and it makes sense though, because when you get further into the story, when you get into like Keezy and stuff like that, like, I totally thought it was acceptable to just be a drug dealer and do drugs and have kids, and just live a very poor life and expose them to very dangerous things. Like, so I totally feel that. Like, I totally feel the resentments and living with it. But, you know, I gave, like I said before, I gave all of it to God. I've given all of it to God, but I carried it for a while. But so we ended up leaving the Hills Have Eyes house to what we thought was going to be better.
I love that it has a name.
Yeah.
It is. It's the Hills Have Eyes house. I mean, considering the next place I went to was Lawrence. Yeah.
I used to live there.
So let me tell you something. So we moved to these apartments on Lawrence and Jackson. And this place, look, when you talk about places that are just it,
You would
there's
see in
evil
a
spirits
you
there.
would you would
It's
see in a
evil.
horror movie.
It's evil. That place is evil. Like, I felt evil. And you know, to be not in touch with God and to be on drugs and to still feel evil, that to me, like, that just screams how evil a place is. That was the most demonic place. That's kind of like when ASAP Preach was talking about it in his documentary. He talks about that place where he lived, and he's like, it was so the demonic things that were going on there. That's how Lawrence was. Like, Lawrence was demonic. It was horrible. And so we were living there. I had found out that I was pregnant with Henry. Henry actually was born with the name Hendrix. I named him. So Henry, I was pregnant with Henry, and my dad was sick. So I had a lot going on there, but my family was kind of, my mom and dad were actually talking to us. Like, we had gotten us an apartment, you know what I mean? But they didn't realize how bad this place really was. Gino ended up getting attacked. Another guy that was living there, I'm not going to say any names or anything because, like, look, this guy, he's later on, he ended up, like, right now, he's facing capital murder. Like, this guy, he almost killed my husband, and, like, it was a failure of the system. Like, the prosecutors and all these people, they were like, you know, take a plea deal, you know, just work with us and we're going to get him locked up. The guy ended up doing like a year and a half in jail, and then he got out, and then he ended up right back at it, and he ended up killing another guy the same way that he almost killed my husband. So guy came running into our house and bashed Gino in the head with a wooden hat rack. The bottom base of it, bashed his skull in. This is when life really hit me, and I was like, God help me. This was the first time, y'all, that I ever in my whole life can really remember sitting there and going, God, please don't take him from me. Like, I mean, I've talked to God before, but not serious. And this was serious. Like, y'all, they brought me in, and like, here I am, I'm high as a kite, pregnant. You know what I mean? And like, it doesn't click to me how serious all this is. Like, when I called 911, y'all, they sent 9 cop cars and no ambulance. That's how bad this place where we lived was. And then I remember the cop looking at my husband, and he was like, do you know who I am? And he's like totally out of it. Like, nobody's home. And the guy's like, well, I know who you are, and I'm going to find who did this to you. Well, the girl that lived with us at the time, she had seen the guy come running in the house. She told the police who it was. She told them everything. I was actually up at the landlord's paying our rent when it happened, and somebody came up the hill and told me, and I went running down. So I get to UMMC. They literally tell me that Gino has like a 15% chance of living. Wow. They tell me, like, this is hard, y'all. This is, so this has affected us our whole entire, like, from this day forward, our life changed. They told us Gino had a 15% chance of living. I was swole pregnant, and they told me that that he was in a coma, and Mississippi Bureau of Investigators, like, look, they bring me in this little itty bitty room, and it's like MBI and 2 doctors, and like, I've watched crime shows, and I'm like, this isn't a good sign. Like, when they come in like this, it's bad. And so they set me down, and they're like, look, we're going to find the guy that did this. Don't worry. And I'm thinking, like, whatever. I don't even care about that right now. But the guy that I spoke of that picked us up walking down the side of the road, like, he went, like, full mode and was like, find this guy. We want this guy. And some other people were, too. The guy and his little girlfriend was actually pregnant at the time, too, which is what's really just mind-blowing. And all of this happened because my husband told the guy's girlfriend that he didn't have a cigarette. And she went back and told her boyfriend that that my husband was being ugly to her. And old boy came up there flipping out, kicked in the door. Gino was bent over in the closet, never saw it coming. And they just bashed his head in. So Gino's in a coma. Gino stays in a coma, and they're like, "Look, we're gonna end up we got to drill a hole in his skull, and put a rod in. We're monitoring his brain waves, trying to see if he still has brain activity. Like, it's not looking real good."
Golly.
And I'm sitting here, and I'm like, I'm trying to register all this. Like, I'm first off, I'm high, I'm zooted out, and I'm like, what is really going on? Like, are you kidding me right now? And like, Gino's been my protector since forever. Like, by this time, I mean, this has been, we're what 3 years, 4 years in. You know what I'm saying? Like, this, we've been together. We've been at it a while. We've been fighting on the streets for a minute, you know, and all of a sudden they tell me that Gino might die. And I was like, what? That's all I got. I was like, you know, it wasn't about our kids. It wasn't about anything. All I could think about was Gino. And so I started talking to God. Actually, first my mom showed up, and my mom went in there and held his hand while they drilled the hole in his head, because I couldn't do it. I just couldn't bring myself to it. But they had him in this intensive care unit at UMC over there on State Street. And, like, it was so serious. Like, look, you couldn't fall asleep in there. Like, you could go in there and see him, but if you would fall asleep, they'd tell you have to get out. Because if something was to happen to him, they have to be able to run in, like, immediately. So I stayed at the hospital. Like, I wasn't leaving at all, nothing. Gino had been in a coma. I want to say it'd been like a week or so. Finally, I leave the hospital. They're like, Chelsea, you got to go home. You got to get some rest, like all this and that. So I go home, and I get a shower, and Gino's brother talks me into laying down and taking a nap. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do this. And he's like, just take a nap. So I lay down and take a nap. I wake up from a nap, and y'all, like I told you, like, I had literally, like, when I tell you I laid in that shower and I cried, and I was like, Lord God, please don't take him from me. Like, I know we don't have a relationship, but look, if there's anything, like, look, I'll change. Like, you know how you do.
Desperation.
And like, total desperation. Like, I'm not sitting there like I am now when I pray. It was just pure, just give me what I want.
That's crazy, because when, in my story, watching my boyfriend shoot himself, kill himself, I remember when we were in the police department waiting to see what was going to happen. And I was in this little room by myself, and that was the exact prayer that I was praying to God. Please don't take him. Please don't take him. Please don't take him. Yeah. And it's looking back at that many years later, it was insane to me to see how it wasn't even about him, though. It was about me.
It was about me.
Don't take him from me, because without him, what am I? Who am I?
Yeah.
Who's going to love me now, kind of thing.
That's how I was.
Yeah.
It was not about, look, Gino and I's relationship was not healthy. You know what I'm saying? Like, we fought, buddy. Like, we was high. We would fight. Like, we didn't have a healthy relationship, like,
Very toxic.
about. Mm-hmm. It was very toxic. Like
who does on drugs?
Yeah,
though?
Sure.
I mean, like,
but like, we were seriously toxic. Like, the fact that we are still standing here today and are what we are, and able to represent ourselves the way we do in our family, and be married and in touch with God, and have a relationship like we do, that's why I'm sitting here today. Because it is possible, but you have to give it all to God. Mm-hmm. Like, we were nasty, like, bad.
So after they drilled the hole.
So after they drilled the hole, he had monitors on his brain. He had tubes. He was literally in a coma. He had tubes on him, everything. So I went home. I finally go home like a week in. It was like a week and a half in. I'd take a nap. I wake up and I see that there's all these missed calls from the hospital. Well, when they would do tube changes, you weren't allowed to be in there. And when they would do tube changes, they would also bring him a little bit out of the coma, like, because, they had him in a medically induced coma because he had swelling on the brain and bleeding. And they would bring him out a little bit. And good old Gino goes and decides to wake up while these folks are changing his tubes. And I'm not there. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, they've called me like 10 times. I'm asleep. What? They're like, he's awake. You need to get up here. He's awake. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, oh, my God, I'm coming. Well, Gino had apparently woke up during the tube change and was, like, trying to. And they were like, please stay still. You have, like, a metal rod coming out of your head. You have, just stay still. And all Gino said to them was, my wife. That was all he said. He literally came to and said, my wife.
This is a straight up miracle from God.
This is all the way.
Like, she's literally, in the shower, bawling her eyes out, total desperation, praying for God to answer his prayer, not to take him away from her, and he didn't. He literally woke him up.
Literally woke him up while I was in my deepest of despair and had no real faith. He still came through.
There's no telling the turn that Chelsea would have taken if he wouldn't have made it.
Oh man, look, let me tell you, if Gino hadn't have made it, because Gino kind of kept me. Gino would keep me from really going off the deep end. Gino never shot dope or any of that. Like, Gino just smoked dope. I know it sounds crazy to say just smoked dope, but
it's a different beast. It's real different. Yeah.
And so for Gino and mine's drug habit, it was two different ball games. Mine was, look, I was doing it and I was going hard.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So Gino would kind of pull me back in. So for the thought of Gino to not made it, I wouldn't probably be here.
Well, how long was he in the coma?
I want to say it was like 2 weeks. It was like somewhere in 2 weeks. To be honest with you, in all of the mess of everything, I really don't remember exactly. Like, I've had people ask me, so I've had people tell me they swore he was in a coma for a month, and I was like, I don't think it was that long. Like, I don't think it was. I want to say it was like about 2 weeks. It was definitely a little while.
How long was the recovery process, like getting out of the hospital?
So that's a whole nother ball game. So, Gino woke up that day. Yes, he woke up. Only thing he said was my wife. I walked in there and Gino could not talk. He could not walk. He had no motor skills.
Wow.
Nothing. No.
So he had a long road ahead.
He had a long road ahead of him. So he stayed in the critical for, I want to say, another about week, probably. He stayed in the critical with still monitoring his brainwaves and stuff. He was just awake. He wasn't in a coma anymore. Then they moved him to another floor. And this is where Gino just was being Gino and I was being Chelsea. And the addiction was being the addiction. So, I tried to help Gino, but it was hard. Gino was in really bad shape. And I still, look, y'all, we just went, so he just started seeing a new neurologist the other week. And I literally told his neurologist, I feel like a lot of the stuff that, he still has damage of is my fault. Because they told us that Gino was going to be, we were like a month in at the hospital, a month and a half in. It was probably about a month, I'd say, we'd been at the hospital. And they were like, he was going to go to a rehab thing at the hospital. They said I could stay there with him, and be there with him and all this stuff. But, I would still leave the hospital and go get high. And then Gino would want to get high. And Gino we had our dogs. Me and Gino always had our dogs. And Gino's dog was at home. And while we were sleeping at the hospital, Gino snuck out of the hospital, left me in the bed, snuck out of the hospital, and went to go feed his dog. He left. And he didn't, I don't think he went and got high. I really don't. I really think he went home to feed his dog. But his brain was not right. Gino had severe damage. He still couldn't really talk that great. To get him to talk, y'all, it was terrible. The doctors were like, well, I guess if it works. So he understood the words. He could hear the words in his head, but he couldn't get them out. Mm-hmm. And I would get him really mad at me. God love me. I'm so terrible for this, y'all. I would piss him off and get him to scream at me so he would make his words come out.
Hey, whatever you got to do.
And that's what the doctor said. The doctor was like, well, I mean, if it works, that's great. But so he left the hospital, and UMC, when I found him, like, the nurse come in there and realized that it was just me in the bed, and I realized it was just me in the bed. And I started calling everybody, and I was like, somebody find Gino. And they found him at the house, and his brother brought him back to the hospital. And this is where UMC failed me. UMC kicked my husband out of the hospital. Mm. They said, well, because he left. Now, you got to realize this man has a head injury, okay? He's not thinking. His mental state, he had severe damage to his left front temporal lobe, okay? That's all your cognitive skills, your motor skills. That's like thinking, eating, breathing, like not to the full extent, but like your maturity. He went from being a 40-some-year-old man to literally being like a 15, 16-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And his mindset was not right.
You can't when there's damage to that part of your brain. You don't do well with weighing pros and cons and
No,
consequences.
you don't do well with any of it. And so they basically were like, look, we're just going to go ahead and send him home. And I was like, okay. So then when we got home, our house was trashed. So the guy that had done this to him, apparently they had hid out in our apartment when they were hiding from MBI. I mean, was the best place to hide, place where the accident happened. They did end up getting the guy, like I said. But so when we got home, our apartment was trashed. Everything was trashed. So we left and we went to Crystal Springs for a while. Gino's friend that we had lived with in Bellhaven way back at the beginning of the story, he was living in Crystal Springs and was like, look, y'all come stay out there. And then Gino hit the floor 2 days in, and nobody's home. I was like, oh, my God, what just happened? Like, he's in the floor, like his eyes are open, nobody's home. And that was when the seizures began. And we were back at the hospital. And they were like, look, it's the damage. And they were like, okay. And they sent us referrals to go and see neurologists and all this, but Gino and I couldn't stay clean. So throughout all of this, we have all this going on. His health's falling apart. Everything's going on. We move into a house in another house in Bellhaven, right next to where we used to say we lived. We moved to Poplar. There was a yellow house on Poplar, and we moved into this house. And I actually was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to bring my kid home. Well, I was doing good. I was staying sober, and I was doing it. I was going to bring Henry home. And then I got the phone call. My mom called me and was like, Chelsea, you need to get here, and you need to get here now. My dad collapsed at work. This one hits me hard. My dad was my rock. Look, I did no wrong in my daddy's eyes, y'all. My daddy never gave up on me. He never saw bad in me. He always saw the good in me. I was pure daddy's girl.
There's something to think about because that's the exact same. We have the same story. Remember, we live the same life.
We do.
But there was a time
could be twins.
I was actually sober. I was living in Columbus.
No, she's only 24.
Right. I'm just a baby. But I was living in Columbus. Anyway, long story short, my car was not working, and so my dad actually brought up one of their cars to Columbus to let me drive it around. Mind you, like, long time ago, Dad stopped putting money in my hand.
Yeah.
He's like, I ain't putting money in your hand for, like, not even $1.
Yeah.
And so I was driving my dad's car on the road, and I was just thinking to myself, like, and I was just crying. I just didn't understand why I could have a dad like I have. And I asked God, I was like, why would you give a father that's so good, that did so much good for someone that was going to put him through so much pain?
Yeah.
And God said, because he's the only one that wouldn't have given up on you.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that like 100%. My dad, y'all, my daddy was amazing. It's a tough few weeks for me and this last few weeks. And actually, Gino went in the hospital on my dad's birthday this past week. So, you know, with all that kind of same kind of thing going on with his head injury and stuff. But so my mom called me and told me that my dad was in the hospital. My dad had collapsed at work, and nobody was home. He was non-responsive. And I had already just gone through everything with Gino, so I understood the whole coma thing. And my mom was like, Chelsea, like, I just don't know what do we do? And she's like, my mom did like that whole chrono freeze thing with him. Like, so he flatlined at work, and one of the guys at work, Pretty Ricky, did CPR on him and like brought him back. But then he flatlined 2 more times, and like they did that chrono thing where like they freeze your body or something, and then they try to bring you back slowly, like warm your body back up or some stuff. Like my mama tried everything, y'all. And this was a moment when I saw I saw pure love. Like my parents, look, my parents, they fought, they went through it. You know, they had rough times, but at the end of the day, they always came back to each other. And like my mama was just devastated. And so my sister came in town. Um, we're up at St. Dominic's, and like we're in there, and y'all, I'm huge. I'm huge pregnant. I end up getting high. And I won't leave my dad's side. I remember my feet were like gigantic, swollen, like 4 times the size. And I remember this nurse telling me, she was like, you know, you need to go take a break and put your feet up for a minute. And I was like, no, I don't want to go. And like they pretty much had already told us that my dad was gone.
You know, going back to what you just said a second ago, and it struck a nerve with me. It's like throughout my life, you know, I was in addiction for 30 years, and throughout my life, every time something tragic would happen, I would run straight to whatever drugs I could get my hands on.
Absolutely.
Straight to
I had so I've never been good at coping. I have no coping skills. I do better now. I turn to God. But at this point in my life, God was not part of my life. He was a part of my father's life. So like when he was at St. Dominic's, like the priest would come in and like pray with him, and like the sister would come in and pray with him. And so like all that was going on, but like I didn't ever stop and go, God, please, you know. I never once did it ever occur to me to go pray for my father.
Jumping back to what you were saying, you know, in that desperation moment with Gino and praying for him, at that time, did you recognize that might have been a miracle from God?
Nope, not at all. I'm not even gonna lie. No, at no point in time was I, because like I said, I was literally, so like, look, Trisha will tell you, Trisha Kraft would tell you. So Trisha would always try to talk to me about God. Like we would get high, and all of a sudden she'd be like, "Chelsea,
So
let's
that
talk
was
about
me.
God."
I had friends like that.
I was like, look, like I don't know what you're putting down, Trisha. Like I love you. Like we were just shooting dope in the bathroom. Like we're not talking about Jesus right now.
But he shows up in situations like that.
I believe it absolutely now, but at that point in my life, I was like, we are not doing this. Like
we do drugs here.
We do drugs here. We don't talk about Jesus. Like there was that I was raised that like if you were this kind of person, you didn't involve yourself with God. Like
Can't even speak
his name. Like that's blasphemy. Like that's how I was raised. Like you got to realize, like I came from like some hard New England Catholics. Like the way they would look at it, they're like, no, ma'am.
And now we realize that those are the people Jesus came here to save.
Yes.
Those are the ones that he goes
exactly.
after.
Like 99 Fest and like Celebrate Recovery and all these things, Night of Hope and all this stuff. Like when I was young, like my grandmother would have looked and been like, "What are y'all doing? Like this is not acceptable." So when I got sober and I actually like learned about God, I was like, "Oh wow."
You could literally look back over your life and see those moments.
And I see these moments, and I'm like, oh, my gosh. Like, this was really happening, like, all the time. You're God winks. They are all God winks. They're beautiful moments of God but I never saw them.
Some people refer to that as prevenient grace.
I like that.
It's a grace that goes before. So God acting on our behalf before we ever come to a place of surrender and saying, okay, God, I'm going to do it your way. That was my car wreck.
I like that.
I should have died so hard in that car wreck. But God was like, boop, not today.
Not today.
Not today.
Yep. But yeah, so I, excuse the way I put it, I lost my shit. I lost my shit when my dad died. I totally lost my shit. There's no way I can describe it other than that. I know that's not the... I did.
Hey, look, it is what it is.
Look, I lost it. I lost a part of me. I don't even know how to talk about it. To be honest with y'all, I don't talk about it. So, you know, this is one of those, like, my mom was like, Chelsea, you're gonna have to come across this milestone in your podcast. And I was like, yeah, we're gonna get there, and we're gonna get through it. And I know now, I have a peace with it. You know, my little boys, we call the moon Papa Moon, and tell my kids that you know, my dad's always watching them and that he's always there with them. And, like, we'll let balloons go and stuff for them. And my kids will sit there, and there's that song, How Do I Say Goodbye? Keezy will get in the car, and he'll go, Mama, will you play Papa Moon's song? And, you know, I'm in that point right now. So it kind of was funny that we hit doing the second part of my podcast right now. Because, like I said, June 3rd was my dad's birthday. This is a rough time for me and my mom both. So, you know, for us, it's hard. Yeah, it's a hard one. I feel for my mom more than anything because she was with him for like 40 years, like a long time. And, you know, we aren't a coping family. So we don't talk about it. It was what it was. And, my dad, God rest his soul, he was ready. He was sick and he was ready. And so he sat me down right before he died and he was like, Chelsea, I'm tired. I hurt. Like, I'm ready to go. I'm at peace with it. And I was like, okay, but I'm not. Like, so when he died, then I went into labor with Henry, a few weeks later. It was like literally not even a few weeks, actually, I don't even think. I'm so terrible with dates because I was so messed up on
I think
drugs.
that's common in our culture.
Yeah, I can't. My timeline is super sketch.
My stuff is super bad. But, so, you know, great emotional moment there. Thanks, guys. So then I had Henry, and Henry was born. Henry, of course, had drugs in his system. My dad had just died, so my mom was like, look, I can't take him. And so Henry went into state custody off the jump. They took him from the hospital. And so we went through that. And then I actually I went back to the house, and one of these guys that always was out there on the streets with us, he brought this crazy old black lady that smoked crack over to my house. And I was like, look, I don't know what this lady is. I don't know why she's here. Like, what are you putting down? And she was like, God has sent me here to tell you something. And I was like, lady, I don't know what you're doing right now, but this is not what we're doing here. Like, I just watched you hit your crack pipe. We're not doing this. Like, once again, I mean, and she was like, no, like, I have a message for you. She was like, there's a place, and it's called Born Free, and you need to go there.
Wow.
And I
just got chills.
Look,
and
let me
I'm
tell you,
like,
hold on. Before you go any further, let me just say, you know, there is scripture that confirms that you never know when you are entertaining angels, and God will use anybody.
She was an angel. I firmly believe it.
God will use anybody to deliver a message to you, to get it to you.
I firmly believe that she was an angel, like, because literally, so the guy that brought her over there, he was like, look, he was like, I just picked her up. She wanted to smoke some rock, and I wanted to smoke some rock. But then she insisted, when we were riding, he said she looked at him and told him that she needed to go to my friend's house. And I had just talked to him on the phone. He was like, she told him, I need to go to her house. I have something I have to tell her. And of course, Marco was, this guy was crazy as all get out. Like, he was cool as all get out, but he was like an old head. Like, this guy was old. And so Marco was like, yeah, we'll entertain it. You know, sure, she's got a bag full of crack. I'm down. And brought her to my house. And she told me about Born Free. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, it's a rehab where you take your kids with you. And I was like, what made you think that you need to tell me that I need to go to a rehab where my kids go? She said, well, you just had a baby, didn't you? And I looked at her and I was like, what did you just say to me? She said, you just had a baby. The day before that, y'all, I had fell asleep with a needle in my arm. I was shooting so much dope that literally the dope man finally looked at me and was like, something's got to give. And the dope man took my sack of dope and literally found me with a needle in my arm, like passed out on the floor. And I woke up the next day and I was just, you know, I was at the bottom of the pits and I was like, I've lost my child again. Like, what am I living for? I'm nothing. I'm worthless. my husband was, you know, having all kind of problems, and like we had nothing. We were nothing. You know what I'm saying? And I felt like I was nothing. I was nobody. I was nothing. And all these people were like, "Oh, but we love you. You're so amazing." And I was like, "Why? Because I have drugs?"
Mm-hmm.
Like I was at that point, I was like, "What y'all don't understand is like I had a whole newborn baby." And like this time it hit me hard. Like I named him, like my dad had died. I named him after so my dad like had a Polaroid picture of Jimi Hendrix that my daddy, he had took a picture of him. He met him when he was on a leave. He was on a wait to be transferred. My dad was in Vietnam, and he was on a wait to be transferred. And on that wait to be transferred, he met Jimi Hendrix.
Wow.
And it was a real Polaroid picture that I found of my dad with Jimi Hendrix.
I'd like to see that. You still got it?
I do. Actually, I
see
do. It's somewhere. You know what? No, actually, I don't think I do. Now that I say that, I don't think I do because it was in the stuff that I had when I lived on Bloom Street. So I don't think I do. But I don't know. I know it's somewhere. But so needless to say, we went into all of it, and we named him Hendrix Sky. We did all that. And then I went to Born Free.
Okay. Before we go any further,
I know.
Hold on. As I predicted in episode in part 1 that this was going to be a trilogy.
Yeah.
But part 3 can be like the
exactly.
redemption.
It is.
Exactly.
Part 3 is going to be the beauty.
Yeah, part 3 does get into some more darkness, but that it ends so well. But before we wrap this up, I do want to ask you one thing.
What's that?
It being Father's Day weekend and all, if and something that I've held on to in my recovery is that I truly wish that my mother and my father would have seen me get clean and sober.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that being said, I can tell you that your father would be so proud of you.
Thank
right
you.
now. But if he was here right now, what would you say to him?
Oh, wow. I talk to my daddy all the time. So that's something that,
what do you think he would say to you?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Even better.
So I know he'd be so proud of me. He'd be so proud of me.
But what would he tell you?
Kiddo, or Chelsea Bug, really. He was like, Chelsea Bug, you've come a long way. You're a good mom. You've got beautiful kids. You have my work ethic, because I do. I work just like my father. Like, I put my all into my work. But I finally have the chance to do that. I know he would tell me that he's proud of me, and I did what my dad asked of me. My dad made me promise that no matter what, that we wouldn't fight. Me and my mom and my sister, that we wouldn't fight, and that we would still all, love each other and have some kind of relationship. And we had a rough patch for a while there, but now, we've come back from it, and we're sticking together. And I don't talk to my sister as much as I like to, but my sister's really proud of us. My sister didn't want anything to do with me and my husband, and now her and her husband, they come and they speak to us, and they're there, and my dad would be real proud of that, because I used to be a real petty person, and I know my dad would be real proud of me for not being a petty person anymore, and for working hard. But most of all, my relationships with all my kids, and coming to terms with losing a child, all these things. I talked to my dad through them. Before I really got in touch with God, I talked to my dad. That was my God. So that's how I dealt with it. But, I know he'd be proud of me. Yeah. I know he would. It's rough, though. I miss him.
Grief
Grief sucks.
Grief sucks. Drug addict or not, grief sucks.
Really
I actually watched a thing, Tara this morning. She had a post on Facebook, and she was talking about, being a grieving hope dealer. Mm-hmm. She was like, it is hard. And I was like, you tell him, girl, because it is. Like, and the way she said it, I was like, I love her.
A lot of people that struggle with grief, they find themselves just stuck in it for years and years, and then they make their way into the chair in front of me. Yes. And conversations come up like, that illustrate that for some people, they don't want to heal from the grief, because if I heal from my grief, then I let go of the last little piece of that person that I've been holding on to.
I feel that.
And then it's like having to come full reality, right? Having to just fully accept that that person is gone and they'll never be here again.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. I definitely feel that. And, like, I've had a lot of grief in my life, and I just didn't deal with it.
Yeah.
So then it was like, not only did I have to deal with that grief, I had to deal with other grief too. So it's been
So part 3 is going to be where it's at.
Part 3 is going to be where it's at. Part 3 is, part 3 is definitely.
We're definitely going to try to schedule this a lot sooner. Hopefully, we're going to do this next Saturday. I don't think we have anything for.
I won't be here Saturday.
Oh well, we're going to.
Here we go again.
Beach. I'm so jealous.
Can I get up in your suitcase,
baby? We can get in the trunk.
I'm coming. I'm coming.
Where are you going?
Gino, you got to watch the kids. I love you. I'm going to the beach.
Yeah.
So to wrap this up, stay tuned. Follow us on social media. We have a YouTube channel, the TikTok and the Facebook, Twitter coming soon, and Instagram. And thank you for tuning in, and tune in for part 3 in the next 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah. Watch the Facebook page. We'll post it there.
Yep, it's coming.